So if you're buying a smartphone in 2019 and you want the best possible one, you're probably looking at the Galaxy S10 Plus and the Huawei P30 Pro. In fact, I've been going back and forth between both of these devices that I can't personally decide which phone is gonna keep my SIM card. The Galaxy S10 Plus has a fresh new design, they've thinned out the bezels, and instead of using a notch like other smartphones, they're using a camera cutout in the top right-hand corner. The P30 Pro, on the other hand, has very similar bezel sizes, but the difference is, instead of a cutout, they're using a notch on the top. Now, in terms of form factor, they're pretty much the exact same size. The only difference is that the P30 Pro is slightly taller. So both phones are obviously rocking in-display fingerprint sensors. You're getting the optical one on the P30 Pro, and it's 30% faster than the one on the Mate 20 Pro. The thing is, on the Galaxy S10 Plus, you're getting ultrasonic, which means it's a lot more secure. But here's the thing. Secure is great, but when it's not fast to log into your device, it kind of defeats the whole entire purpose. For example, I can log into my P30 Pro significantly faster than it takes to get into the S10 Plus. I've also been through like 3 different S10 devices, and this is the first one that it actually works flawlessly. It's just a lot slower than the competition. Sound quality on the S10 Plus is better than the P30 Pro. You actually get 2 speakers, one in the earpiece and of course one on the bottom. When you pair these together, you get a stereo effect, which just gives you more immersion when you're watching content. Also, you get a headphone jack, and I know this has been beaten to death, but it's still nice to have. There'll be a few situations where you might actually use it, or maybe you're an audiophile and has a DAC that connects to the headphone and you have your wired pair of headphones that need to be driven. This will do it, whereas on the P30 Pro, you're gonna have to carry a dongle around. Now, the P30 Pro has a mono speaker on the bottom. It does get quite loud and actually doesn't sound too bad. It's just, that's it. Now, there is another speaker built into the display, but this doesn't work when you're listening to music or consuming content. It only works when you're making and taking phone calls. Here's the thing though, when you pair these stereo speakers with one of the best displays on the market, the S10 Plus essentially becomes the best smartphone for content consumption. I mean, this display, I cannot explain it to you, is absolutely stunning. It's dynamic AMOLED, it has HDR10 support, it's QHD+, it's just beautiful. The P30 Pro, on the other hand, is also AMOLED, but it's not as vibrant and punchy as the S10 Plus. In fact, I actually think the P30 Pro is using one of Samsung's panels. It's just a 1080p version. So if you put the phone like really close to your face, you can actually see some of the pixelation. Now, one area that the P30 Pro completely dominates the S10 Plus is the camera. You're getting 3 different lenses. The top one is your 40 megapixel main shooter. The middle one is 20 megapixels, ultra wide, and then you have the 8 megapixel sensor, which is a telephoto lens. The way they built this is actually quite smart. If they were to put it basically vertical with the other 2 lenses, it would completely stick out of the back. So what they did was they built the lens horizontally and used a mirror to reflect it. This thing has 5 times zoom, 10 times optical zoom, and 50 times digital zoom. You basically can creep on anybody with this device. It is like the ultimate creep camera. But when it comes to software, I gotta give it to the S10 Plus. I actually really enjoy One UI. It's a nice refresh of their older Samsung experience. They've refined it. It basically sticks to the Android elements. It very much looks like Android Pie, and I like how much cleaner it is than it used to be. Now, don't get me wrong. The P30 Pro is using MUI 9.1, and it is better. They actually fixed a lot of bugs that irked me in previous versions. It's almost good now. Like, I'd actually use it and not be too upset about it, but I just don't like the fact that it looks a little bit too much like an iPhone still. So obviously I've installed Nova Launcher on both of my smartphones. But when it comes to battery life, the P30 Pro just again beats out the S10 Plus. 4100 milliamps compared to 4200. You have the 1080p display. It's also AMOLED, which means it's a lot more efficient, which means you're gonna get more battery life out of this device compared to the S10 Plus. And listen, I'm not saying the S10 Plus has bad battery life. In fact, it's actually really good, easily taking me through the entire day, sometimes a day and a half. It's just with this phone, I can probably go with 2. You can charge this phone up a lot faster. Supercharge is quicker than fast charging on Samsung's device, and both phones phones obviously support reverse wireless charging. And the last thing I want to mention is the performance. Like, I don't notice a difference in speed between both of these devices. They're both just very zippy. No matter what I'm doing in the menu, going between different items or applications, both phones are buttery smooth. Now, if you want to get geeky and talk specs, you're comparing the Snapdragon 855 to the Kirin 980, and on paper, the Snapdragon 855 is much more powerful. Will you notice it? Maybe in certain situations if you're rendering a file or if you're playing a video game, but overall, most people can't tell the difference in terms of performance. So the big question, which phone is the better phone? I think it comes down to the type of person you are. If you're someone who values the best camera experience, you're gonna go for the P30 Pro, hands down. But if you're someone who loves versatility, having the best hardware features with still a pretty good camera, the S10 Plus makes a lot more sense. For me, I'm still having a hard time deciding, but I think I'm leaning towards the S10 Plus just because of the display, just because of the external speakers, the fact that it has a headphone jack, and even though both phones are pretty bad at updating, Samsung is still more known to update their devices slightly faster than Huawei. Anyways, that wraps up this little comparison. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Are you on Team P30 Pro or are you opting for the S10 Plus? Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video.